Also, I apologize for my voice. I was shouting at the excitement of seeing your show, and this is what happened. This is your fault. This is your fault. I get excited when I talk, so I'm gonna try to slow it down, and hopefully you can understand me through the strain of my voice that this is your fault because it's such a great show. But dog, Invincible Fight Girl, man, I saw the screeners yesterday.
Mhm.
My God, I ain't sleep. I ain't
Oh,
sleep. You
oh
did
man.
that. And I have to ask, like, especially that's a wrestling show and also starring a black girl as well, and their dream of being a wrestler. What, why a wrestling show? Why go that route for this show?
Yeah. I think there's a couple of ways that I get there. I start from my own sort of obsession with wrestling as a kid.
Nice.
Uh, the story I always tell is like coming home from school, I'm doing my homework, it's nighttime, I've got a TV in my room, I'm supposed to be asleep. I turn the TV on because that's when wrestling comes on, and
Hmm.
I'm watching, those matches in between reruns of like Seinfeld and Just Shoot Me.
Yep.
Um, so that's where that love begins, and it's the 90s, so wrestling is kind of holding a very particular level of attention in the
Hmm.
public consciousness. The Attitude Era is like really, at least at my school, really occupying a lot of our attention. So you've got kids walking around with Stone Cold Steve Austin t-shirts. You've got kids, saying The Rock quotes to teachers when they definitely should not be saying that.
Yep.
Um, so it's sort of got this special hold on our attention that I think even today it sort of hasn't quite gotten back to that same level of like this is this is the spot that it holds in pop culture. And then I come to it with regards to this show from the angle of there's a lot of things that I really appreciate about anime shows like Naruto, Pokemon, the way that they use these sort of what seem like simplistic concepts in Pokemon. It's these creatures that you capture, um,
Hmm.
but they start from this place and they expand and they explore it from all these different angles, and they uses it as a metaphor to talk about people's relationships with their passions and people's relationships with themselves and the ways that they know themselves. Same thing for Naruto. We use this concept of shinobi and we examine it from all of these different angles that then give us a commentary on life as a whole, and what does it mean to find your purpose, and how does that juxtapose against your duty. And so I was so fascinated. I have such a love for shows that do that, that to me the opportunity and the challenge was to see if I could use wrestling in that same way, to use it
Right.
as a metaphor to talk about lots of different things, whether it be what are the universal truths that we all find ourselves, no matter what path we're on, coming back to. What are the universal truths of following a passion?
Yes.
And whether you're a new doctor coming into this already pre-established medical field that has all this history, or you're someone like me who's an animator coming into this field that has all this history, what are the commonalities there? Um, and so to me, that was sort of the exciting possibility of this and the challenge of it, of
Yeah.
how do you convey to an audience wrestling is freaking awesome and it's not just about wrestling.
Exactly. I what I like about the show as well is that if I'm not if I knew nothing about wrestling, it's still entertaining. But that I
Mm,
know, but I know about wrestling and grew up watching as well, and still watch it. It feels like, oh wow, this is a kid show disguised as a wrestling show for wrestling fans as well. And I can
mm,
see the elements of like new, like indie, like the independent scenes, New Japan Pro Wrestling, the Attitude Era, and also this the era that we're in now. It seems like the perfect time now for this show to exist because like wrestling has a big resurgence happening as well, and getting on that you have Andy, this black girl enjoying wrestling and saying like there's a line in there, wrestling's for everyone, which was a huge line for like a good like I guess I want to say like from like 2017, 2018, like with this resurgence. I want to say like I want to ask what influences from like the black wrestlers now that have been like killing it, like let's say like Jade Cargill, Willow Nightingale, Bianca Belair. Were there any of those influences? And Naomi got always got a one of
sure,
Naomi,
Naomi. Yeah.
and were
Uh,
any of those influences, or from that sect, from that like this increase and boom of them, have that influenced the show as well in regards to creating Andy?
Absolutely, as well as some of the older ones, Booker T.
Yes.
He's a freaking idol. So much of it was trying to pull these things that for the people who might know, pull these things into this world.
Hmm.
And so, for those who might catch it, and then at the same time, as you say, not necessarily make it accessible, but make it this thing that even if you don't know wrestling,
Yes.
by the time you finish the show, you're going to be compelled to check it out.
Yes.
And at the same time, like almost using Andy as the audience's lens a little bit,
Hmm.
like is the POV of this person who has this interest, has this fascination, but is an outsider, so she doesn't know. So naturally, through her journey, through her traveling and going deeper into this wrestling world, you, the audience, are going to learn more about it and like emotionally kind of key into more of why it is so cool and why it is so
Hmm.
awesome and why you should be compelled in your personal life to give it your time.
What I like you mentioned her journey does play out like you're doing the creator like no like WWF No Mercy, like we're going through the creative character storyline as
Hmm.
well. It also feels like an RPG going too. And what I really appreciate about her is that she was fighting on her own. So when she gets in like and wants to be this wrestler, we see her not like just immediately starting off as a prodigy. We see her starting from the very basics of
Yeah.
that. And the knee bar, and then
Yeah.
seeing the animation when she starts to feel more confident, like that, like I was talking about that New Japan Pro Wrestling coming out where she's just taking the hits. It was
Yeah.
amazing to see, and also amazing to see like a girl doing this as well, because like a lot of these matches are intergender matches, and I'm like, oh, is it gonna?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
this is like she's taking elbows to the face for real and getting up. I'm like, I'm like, oh,
Yes.
we're doing this, we're doing it, which
Yes.
is I feel like a clear choice y'all made too.
Absolutely. It felt like it needed to feel like the stakes were really high.
Hmm.
The everything you say from her starting point being episode one, yes, she's been training on her own in this forest, but she's really only got one move.
Yep.
And that fight is essentially like it's less of a fight and more of a chess match. And
Hmm.
okay, I've got this one thing. When can I deploy it?
Yep.
Oh, I deployed it at the wrong moment, and now I'm paying for it.
Yep.
Oh, but I deployed it at the right moment, and now like it's a matter of just hold on for dear life until I can get him to tap. And like she has to pay for that because she's gonna take a lot of damage while she's doing it.
Yep.
And so much of that was making the audience believe the stakes.
Hmm.
Again, to your point, we've got this story about this kid who is going up against these really strong people. And you have to kind of believe that if we give her a win, why she got that win, it's not just
Yes.
because she's the main character. It's
Yes.
because there was some puzzle to this match that she figured out and it allowed her an opportunity to capitalize on it, or it didn't,
Yes.
or she made some progress and it still wasn't enough. But I
Yeah.
think we had a very like staunch commitment to this idea of like wrestling is going to be hard. It's going to be like violent. It's going to feel like you as the audience are going to feel these impacts, and it's going to be a little bit of a like wake up call for her as she's coming into this world, imagining what it's going to be like. And here's what it actually is.
Hmm.
And so it sort of reinforces her decision as a character to be like, okay, I'm going to take all these crazy hits and I'm going to keep coming back. Like it sort of reinforces everything to have the stakes of the wrestling feel heavy and feel impactful and meaningful.
I was gonna ask as well because you talked about her the beginning of her journey. Will we will we see the type of wrestler that Andy will become? As in, will she be a technical wrestler? Will she be a lucha libre wrestler? We're seeing a bunch of different styles from her now. She started off with
Yeah,
a technical move. Then in the next episode, we see her throwing strikes like like American Dragon style strikes and just really boxing it. So like, are we gonna see her go through a bunch of different styles to find her own, or will we see her or will she be like the all around type?
absolutely. We're going to see her. I don't know if you can sense in the way that we've introduced moves and the ways that
Yeah,
we've used matches, but we're the show is designed again for people who like wrestling to be able to be like, oh, that's that thing, but also for people who don't know wrestling, for us to kind of walk you into, what it is and what it
yeah,
comprises of. So episode one, we get just a tiny bit of like, okay, here's some stuff you can do in terms of holds. here's some ideas of what you can do in terms of strikes. Episode 4, she meets someone who's just a brawler,
Yeah.
and that's like his whole thing, you know. So that's kind of a way of introducing the audience into like, here's that component. A couple episodes later, we get another fight, and we start to go into more like grabs and things like that. So it's both for the audience and for her to be able to start to get different exposure to different types of things that will, A, in the context of the fight, make her have to adapt, but
Hmm.
B, start to make her develop into a well-rounded wrestler, who can do all of these things. You know, we're kind of like I said, we're not treating them just as fights. We're treating them as like puzzles. So you
Yes.
get someone who is gonna, you know, use elbow drops on you constantly. What's the counter for? You have to now you have to figure out what the counter is for the elbow drop,
Hmm.
as opposed to us just throwing it all out there. And then every fight is just, you know, it's just a fight where people are throwing out whatever.
That's very like much like how Georgie Marakawa did it with Hajime no Ippo. Every move, every action is important, and the things you train for it. Justin, I thank you for this. I could just sit here and talk wrestling with you all day, man. But I know you gotta go as well. But I thank you so much for talking Black No Problems about it, and we look forward to seeing more of the show as well, and especially like y'all getting a season 2 and a
Yeah,
3 and
I
a
hope
4.
so.
I'm calling it now. Calling it now. Of
Hope so, man. Thank you so much. So,
course,
so much.
thank you so much.